Greetings, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of Shadows over Mordheim. This is our series of weekly Mordheim battle reports, and this is battle report number 5. It is a street fight scenario that is fought between my two friends, Dark Lord Mac as well as Fresh Prince Bel-Air. Dark Lord Mac is bringing Spiteclaw Swarm, a Skaven warband from Clan Eshin, and Fresh Prince Bel-Air is bringing the Shades and Nagarythe, which is a Shadow Warriors warband. So this is the very last battle of round number 1 of our Mordheim campaign, and so far we're having a really awesome time having our warbands fight it out in the City of the Damned. So we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what these warbands are bringing, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So let's go ahead and talk about the scenario rules for this one. The scenario is street fight, and the goal is to escape down the street to the other side of the battlefield. In this case, that slime river that's cutting right through the middle of the battlefield is going to be the street that the Skaven are going to try to escape through. At the same time, the Shadow Warriors are trying to escape it to the other side as well. For the experience points, +1 experience points for heroes and henchmen who manage to survive the scenario, +1 for the winning gang leader, as well as 1 point of experience per enemy that is put out of action by a hero, and also any hero who manages to escape the battlefield also earns an additional experience point. So with the scenario rules over, let's go and talk about the battle plan real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my opponents are playing on a 4x4 table. Dark Lord Mac is deployed on the near side of the table, while my other friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air is deployed on the far side of the table. And pretty much the street that they're trying to escape on is that long slime river, which is right through the middle of the entirety of the battlefield. The goal is for each of these warbands to get to the other side and try to escape as well. As for what the plan is for these different warbands, I really couldn't tell you. I'm just the arbitrator in this campaign, so I'm just taking photos of the action that's taking place. I really don't know what my friends' battle plan is. Pretty much, I can probably guess that their goal is to try to escape the battlefield as quick as they can, because that's the scenario objective. But aside from that, that's really about it. So with the battle plan over, let's go talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so starting with Spiteclaw Swarm, our Clan Eshin Skaven warband. Over the left hand side, that is Scritch Spiteclaw. He's an assassin adept who's also the warband's leader. He's packing light armor, halberd. He's got the leader skill as well as the perfect killer skill as well. Right next to him on the right hand side is on the right hand side that is Rar, that is his rat ogre. He's got the fear, stupidity special rules as well as large target rules. And over there on the right hand side is the rest of his warband. Leading up the front, that is Crick the Almost Trusted. He is an Eshin sorcerer who's equipped with a halberd. He's also got the wizard skill. He's got the Black Fury skill, which allows him to charge a mob within 12 inches, gives him +2 attack as well as +1 strength in close combat. And then right behind him we have Squeak the Festering, which is a Black Skaven who's equipped with Weeping Blades. And on the left hand side, that is Squee the Lurker, who's a Night Runner who's equipped with Fighting Claws. And that pretty much makes up the Spiteclaw Swarm on this one. And all the way across the other side of the battlefield is the Shades and Nagarythe, which is played by my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air. Over here on the left-hand side, on the far left-hand side, he has actually one of his Shadow Walkers. His name is Rahab. He's equipped with shield, longbow, as well as a sword. In the middle of their formation is Duma, the Shadow Weaver. He's equipped with his longbow sword. He's also got the Shield of Shadows spell. And right next on the right-hand side, that is Malchiah. He's the last Shadow Walker. He's equipped with shield, longbow, as well as a sword. And then right in front of them is the Silent Strider, who is a Shadow Warrior. His name is Ramael. He's packing a shield, longbow, as well as a sword. And that pretty much makes up Prince Bel-Air's left-hand side. And finally, on the right-hand side in the back is Raziel, the Shadow Master, who's also the leader of this warband. He's equipped with light armor, shield, longbow, as well as a great weapon. He's also got the leader skill. And then on that side is 2 of his henchmen. Those guys' name is Castiel and Samael. These are 2 Shadow Watery novices. They're equipped with shields as well as spears. And that pretty much makes up his deployment on this side. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top at turn number 1, and both of my friends roll off for initiative to see who'll go first. Alright, so that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Skaven, and so my buddy Dark Lord Matt gets to go first. As you can see on the left hand side, he's pretty much just kind of moved up as quickly as he can, just running his teams to the other side of that little ruined gatehouse building that's crossing the river there. On the left hand side, he puts Spiteclaw as well as Roar. On the right hand side, he's also got Crick, Squee, as well as Squeak. Those guys are also located there on the right hand side, taking cover in that little ruined gatehouse. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of Scritch, Spiteclaw as well as Roar, taking cover behind the little gatehouse there, behind the cage doors on the left hand side of the Slime River. And finally on the right hand side is a close-up of Crick, Squeak, and Squee moving up as quick as they can to the right hand side of the battlefield right behind that little gatehouse. And since both of these teams have ran forward, there is no shooting phase, and since no one's engaged in close combat, we skip that phase and we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Shades of Nagarythe. Alright, so that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Shadow Warriors. And as you can see in this photo, pretty much my buddy Fresh Belair has done exactly the same thing, just running up his team members as quickly as he can. On the left hand side is a little squad of Shadow Walkers as well as Shadow Warrior. He just kind of put them over to that little fence there on the left hand side next to the tower, while at the same time his close combat element troops with Raziel, Castiel, and Samael, they move forward on the right hand side, paralleling the Slime River as well. So here's a close-up of the left-hand side with Duma, Rahab, Melchiah, as well as the Shadow Strider. Looks like they're taking cover positions behind that fence, so that way they can take fire behind cover with their longbows if they need to. And finally, over here on the right-hand side is a close-up of Raziel, as well as Castiel and Samael. Those guys are just kind of running up as quick as they can. They're the close combat elements of this team, and they're also paralleling the Slime River as well. And since both teams have run forward in order to get to their fighting position, we skip shooting. And since there's no shooting phase, we skip the combat phase, and we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for Spiteclaw Swarm. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of number 2 for the Skaven Warbands. And as you can see in this photo, it looks like my buddy Dark Lord Mac decided to kind of button hook around to the right hand side of the battlefield. Looks like he's trying to avoid conflict as close as he can against the High Elves. Which is also kind of interesting because for a Skaven Warband, Dark Lord Mac's Warband is quite small. In fact, the High Elves are outnumbering him, which is actually kind of interesting when you think about it. So for the first thing he decides to do, he decides to run over Crick, Squeak, as well as Squee over to the right hand side next to that little tower there. As you can see, they're taking cover position behind that fence as well as that tower. At the same time, he also follows to the right hand side with Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar, and they're taking position to cover behind that little watchtower there on the left hand side of the Slime River as well. And that pretty much makes up his move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar, just taking positions right there in the little ruins of the little river gatehouse and taking cover so that way they don't get shot at by High Elves. And here's a close-up of Squee, Squeak, as well as Crick as they move as quick as they possibly can to the right-hand side in order to escape as well. And since both of these Skaven teams have ran, there's no shooting, and we skip the fighting combat phase because no one's engaged in close combat. We go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Shadow Warriors on this one. And as you can see here, my friend Fresh Prince Belair has done just a little bit of movement, not really quite much. He leaves Duma, Rahab, Melchiah, as well as the Shadow Strider Ramael over on the left-hand side. They're still behind the little fence next to the watchtower on the left-hand side, which is perfectly fine because they're equipped with longbows, and longbows have a 30-inch shooting range. And as you can see right there, they actually have a pretty good line of sight heading directly to actually one of the Skaven fighters who's right next to the tower. Now, Crick, the Almost Trusted, is perfectly fine. Same thing with Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar. I believe that character that's exposed is the Weeping Blades carrying Skaven, the Black Skaven, that's right. His name is Squeak the Festering. He's the only one who's actually exposed, which is actually a bad thing because all 4 High Elves can actually hit him with longbows, which is all kinds of bad for him. While that's occurring, he's also taking Raziel as well as his 2 Shadow Warrior novices, Castiel and Samael, and he's moving on the right-hand side of that little orange building there in the middle of the battlefield, on the right-hand side, kind of taking cover around that building, kind of sweeping right as well. So here's a close of the movement phase. As you can see, Raziel as well as Castiel and Samael, they're just moving there on the right-hand side, just kind of button hook in order to intercept the Skaven before they try to escape. And here's a close-up of Duma, Rahab, Melchiah, as well as Ramael, the Shadow Stalker, the Shadow Silent Strider, as they just kind of take up cover positions to get ready to open fire during the shooting phase. So during the shooting phase, Duma, Rahab, and Malkaya, they actually missed their shots, so not much really happens. However, Ramael, the Silent Strider, though, not only does he manage to hit Squeak the Festering, he also managed to wound him as well with a critical shot, no less, putting twice as much damage directly onto him. So because of that, when they rolled for the injury on that guy, Squeak the Festering actually got an out of action result. So first blood goes directly to the Shades of Nagarythe, as Squeak the Festering goes directly out of action. So things are not looking very good for my buddy Dark Lord Mac at this point. So with the shooting phase over with, we skip combat, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for Spiteclaw Swarm. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Skaven, and as you can see in this photo, once again, my buddy Dark Lord Mac just kind of skirts over to the right hand side in order to avoid combat as quickly as he can. First of all, he decides to send in Screech, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar. They kind of run over to the ruins there on the right hand side, taking cover behind the ruins, so that way they don't get shot at. And while that's occurring, of course, Crick as well as Squee, they move up as quickly as they can on the right hand side, using the tower as cover for the most part. So here's a close-up of Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar, taking cover behind that little ruin building, so that way they don't get shot at. And once again, here's a close-up of Squee the Lurker, as well as Crick the Almost Trusted, as they move as quick as they can, just around that little building there on the right-hand side of the tower. After that, there's really not much going on for the rest of the turn. They don't have any shooting weapons within Spiteclaw Swarm, so we skip the shooting phase, and there is no combat phase, so we skip that. We go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Shades of Nagarythe. Alright, so that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Shadow Warriors. As you can see in this photo, my buddy Dark Lord Mac decides just to kind of fully commit at this point. He decides to leave Raziel as well as Castiel and Samael exactly where they're at because they don't want to be charged out in the open. So they just kind of stay exactly where they are behind that orange building as well as the barn there on the right hand side. However, he decides to activate Duma, Rahab, Malkaya, as well as the Silent Strider. Those guys actually run across the battlefield to the right hand side, running over the Slime River, the Gangplank, and landing on this side as well. They won't be able to shoot anything because everything's behind cover anyways, so they figure might as well just try to close up and just try to use numbers to outnumber Spiteclaw Swarm. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the movement phase. You can see Duma, Rahab, Malkaya, as well as Ramael, the Silent Strider, moving as quickly as they can across the battlefield in order to engage Spiteclaw Swarm. And finally, there's a close-up of Raziel as well as Castiel and Samael, just kind of taking cover behind the house and just kind of buying their time, getting ready to counterattack against the Skaven. And since everybody ran this case, or they decided not to move, there is no shooting phase. There is no close combat phase, so we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for Spiteclaw Swarm. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Skaven on this one, and once again, a lot of movements taking place for the most part. Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar run from the ruins directly to the right-hand side of the tower, taking cover there. At the same time, Squeak the Festering, as well as Crick the Almost Trusted run with the right-hand side of that barn, so that way they can kind of take cover there as well. Which is actually pretty good, because if my opponent Dark Lord Mac can get his guys across to the table edge on the top of the table, he'll be able to have his fighters escape, and they'll be able to do so. So it looks like what he kind of did is he kind of button hooked around, so that way he draws the hiles away from the exit point, and by doing that, it kind of leaves the exit point open for his troops to move through. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Alright, so here's a close-up of Scritch, Spiteclaw, as well as Roar, hiding behind the tower there, so that way they don't get killed. And here's a close-up of Crick the Almost Trusted, as well as Squeak the Festering, Squee the Lurker, as they just kind of bide their time behind that little barn as well. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Now, during the magic phase, shooting phase, my buddy Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Crick the Almost Trusted with his spell. He has a spell called Black Fury, which gives the sorcerer ability to charge any model within 12 inches of him during the shooting phase. And if he does make a successful charge, he actually gets +2 attacks as well as plus strength for close combat attacks only for this turn. That's exactly what he decides to do. So he actually gets the Black Fury spell off, rolling a 9. He needed 8 up in order to get that spell off, and he goes charging across the battlefield directly to Castiel, which is the Shadow Warrior novice right in front of him, engage him in close combat as well. So during the combat phase, Crick the Almost Trusted actually gets 3 attacks off and manages to hit Castiel only once, however, able to wound him as well. Because he's carrying a halberd and he's got +1 strength, he's actually strength 5 Skaven in close combat, so all he had to do is make sure he didn't roll a 1 in order to wound Castiel. So he did take Castiel, and he actually causes a knockdown result, a stun result on him, so because he goes crashing face down to the ground and he's currently bleeding out, which is a bad spot for Castiel to be in, because the next turn, if something doesn't happen, Crick the Almost Trusted could just finish him off in close combat and put him directly out of action as well. And that pretty much makes it the combat phase on this one. So with combat phase over with, we go directly to the bottom of the turn for the Shades of Nagarythe. Alright, so here's the bottom of turn number 4 for the Shadow Warriors, and as you can see in this photo, pretty much some dramatic movements taking place. First of all, Raziel as well as Samael, they also charge directly into Crick the Almost Trusted in order to engage him in close combat. At the same time, that is occurring as well. As you can see, this little Duma, Rahab, Malkai, and the Silent Strider basically just taking a firing line, making a straight line between the two orange roof buildings, so that way they engage in combat with ranged combat. Looks like what he's trying to do is try to bottleneck the Skaven between the barn as well as the orange building, and he can shoot down that little narrow opening with that keyhole position with his archers. He was able to do so and just kind of shoot the Skaven as they kind of charge through, which is actually a pretty good idea. Alright, so here's a close-up of the move phase. As you can see, Ramael as well as Samael have charged directly into Crick the Almost Trusted, and at the same time you can see that little firing line of the high elves there, get ready to engage targets as they come in between those two buildings. So with the move phase over, we skip the shooting phase because there's no targets to shoot at. We go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, Crick the Almost Trusted, not only does he manage to hit Raziel twice, he also managed to wound him twice as well, one of them being a critical attack. So because of that, I think it was a critical 6 on that one, so because that gets +2 to his injury dice directly into Raziel, manages to put the leader of the warband directly out of action, so because of that, Raziel the Shadow Master will need to roll up on the injury table to see exactly what happens to him. At the same time, with his last attack, instead of focusing it on directly onto onto Samael, he decides to kind of stay in close combat with Samael so that way he gets protected from shooting. He basically just kind of coup de grace in the last finishing blow on Castiel, the Shadow Warrior novice, managed to put him out of action as well. So he'll need to roll up to see whether he lives or dies at the end of the scenario because he's a henchman. And with that pretty much ends the bottom of the turn for the Shadow Warriors. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Skaven on this one. As you can see in this photo, there's a lot of dramatic movement. First of all, Squee the Lurker, the Night Runner, charges directly into Samael, the Shadow Warrior Novice, and engages in close combat as well. So that way now Crick as well as Squee are going up against that one Shadow Warrior Novice. While that's occurring, he decides to run up Roar as well as Scritch Spiteclaw. They just kind of hook around the tower over the left-hand side, directly right in front of that orange house building. Looks like he's kind of sweeping to the left in order to engage the Shadow Warriors there. And that pretty much makes his move phase on that one. So here's a close-up of the move phase, so that way you can say Crick the Almost Trusted as well as Squee the Lurker going directly into Samael the Shadow Warrior Novice. And that could actually prove pretty bad for my buddy Fresh Prince Belair because 2 Skaven against 1 High Elf Novice is never a good thing to be put into. So we skip the shooting phase and go directly into the combat phase. You can see in this photo, Crick the Almost Trusted just kind of flubbed his roll. His spell ended and he wasn't able to cast that spell again. So because of that, he does try to counterattack, but unfortunately not much really happens there. However, it ends up being Squee the Lurker actually managed to cause a stun result directly onto Samael. So because of that, Samael just goes crashing face down into the ground, is currently bleeding out. Which again is a really bad spot for him to be in because if the next turn nothing happens, these guys can finish him off with a coup de grace real quick. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of the turn for the Shadow Warriors. So during the turn number 5 for the Shadow Warriors, during the recovery phase, the first thing that my buddy Fresh Prince Belair has to do is, of course, take a route test. And as you can see in this photo, he kind of fails it, rolls a 10 when the highest leadership is actually 8. So because of that, just like that, the entirety of the Shades of Nagarythe get routed and pretty much brings the end of the game. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to the end of the game, with the Skaven of Spiteclaw Swarm managed to steal the victory on this skirmish scenario for our very last battle of turn number 1 of our campaign. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report and talk about exactly what happened to the warbands, because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so first of all, let's go and talk about the Shades of Nagarythe real quick. So for the injuries, Raziel, the Shadow Master, as well as Castiel, the Shadow Warrior Novice, were both put out of action. Luckily for my friend Fresh Prince Belair, though, both those guys made full recovery, so nothing much really happened there. For advancements, while everyone did get an experience point, there is no advancements for these guys, so nobody advances during this time. During the exploration phase, they did manage to find 3 shards of Weirdstone worth 65 gold pieces. They also found a Straggler as well, so the next time they do another exploration, they'll be able to get +1 to their dice rolls on that one. They get to re-roll a die and basically take the highest result for the next time they do this. At the trading post, they decided to take their gold pieces, hired a new Shadow Warrior named Tora as his name. He's equipped with a longbow, sword, as well as a shield, so now this warband has additional henchmen located in it as well. The new record now is at 0 wins as well as 1 loss, and the new warband rating now is at 103 points. Alright, so now we go directly to Spiteclaw Swarm. They only had 1 member of the gang who was actually injured. His name was Squeak the Festering, and luckily for my buddy Dark Lord Mac, he made a full recovery for that Black Skaven, so he's perfectly fine on that one. When it comes to advancements, none of the members of this warband advance at this time, even though people gain experience points. And during the exploration, they managed to find 3 shards of Wordstone that managed to get them 70 gold pieces. With their 70 gold pieces, they hired a new netrunner named Snarl the Rabbit, who's equipped with a flail, and they also hired a brand new Verminkin henchman for their gang called the Swarm, and he's equipped with a sword as well as a shield. The new record now is at 1 win and 0 losses, and the new warband rating is at 96 points. So that's going to do it for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news on this channel. That's going to do it for this one, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.